On the 20th of October 1962, China launched an unprovoked attack on Indian positions along the line of actual control. It quickly spiraled into a full-scale border war between the two countries. It lasted 1 month and 1 day. And today, over 60 years after the war, we are still dealing with the fallout of the India-China border war of 1962. There have been a few flashpoints since then, but the LAC between the two countries was largely peaceful. Then, in May 2020, China moved 2 divisions along the LAC and sparked off the first deadly clash between the two sides in 45 years. India has held its ground and now is matching China in a race to build infrastructure along the world's highest mountain ranges. It's what we are calling the Himalayan standoff, and it presents a strategic challenge for Prime Minister Narendra Modi. It's the world's only super high altitude deployment, and it's entering its 4th winter now with over 100,000 Indian soldiers watchful about China's next moves. Joining me on the show today is Ambassador Suresh Goel, who has spent over 3 decades in the Foreign Service and closely looked at China. Ambassador Goel, welcome to the News9 Plus show.
Thank you very much.
I want to start by asking you, India has never had an aspiring superpower on its doorstep, and today we have a rising China, an aggressive China, a not so friendly China. How does India handle this aspiring dragon, an aspiring superpower on its doorstep?
Very uncomfortable. That's the first reaction that comes to my mind. Also at the same time, something totally unforeseen, totally unexpected, in the sense that traditionally we have looked at China as a kind of a comparable civilization, friendly, with similar kind of ambitions in terms of their place in the global politics, the global happenings. There was a war in '62, and there are several explanations for that. Really, territorial ambitions was not really the major part of it. There were several factors like connectivity to Xinjiang, etc., which came into play. But mostly, it was thought that it was a reaction, it was a way to manage the developments within China and to deal with the domestic politics, to create a diversion or to create a challenge somewhere else. What we now have, and I think we should have seen it happening, is where China began to grow economically, and not just economically. In 1970s, when China announced the 4 modernizations, I think at that time it was quite clear that China has ambition to become a global superpower. When they talked about economic, military modernization, etc., etc. But I think at that time, Deng Xiaoping, the way he operated, he didn't create that kind of a fear in the neighborhood, and in fact, he tried to basically carry it like, and he did, in terms of improving relations with the neighbors. India, particularly, he called India.
Hide your strength and bide your time. That's the famous.
In the case of
example,
India, it was basically not just bide your time or hide your strength. It was basically, he did consider India as a country with which they need to have good relations, really.
Right.
It's as China developed economically and became an economic superpower, except for a brief period in 90s.
Right.
When late 90s, the end of the millennium, when India began to catch up with China in terms of the faster economic growth rate, the China began to look at India as a kind of a competitor, and then again we have been left behind. So China's ambitions were fairly obvious in the beginning of this millennium. It was just that the change of the leader of China to Xi Jinping has made it more clear and more visible. And now there is no really going back to the earlier days when we could think of China as a country with which we could have equitous relationship.
Right. Interesting you should bring in Xi Jinping, because a lot of people call Xi Jinping, he's the most powerful Chinese leader since Deng Xiaoping. And even going back, Mao Zedong, they call him a new Mao. And do you think we actually have a problem with China, or is it a leadership issue, a problem with President Xi Jinping? Because he's very ambitious, he wants to make China the #1 power in the world. His ambitions are very clearly mentioned.
I think China would have become a problem sooner or later as it grew in terms of the comprehensive national power. China is far, far ahead of India.
Right.
And China is not a country culturally or civilizationally which would actually hide its strength. It would use the strength to basically gain a dominant position in the region. So it would have happened sooner or later.
Irrespective of which leader was in
irrespective of who the
power.
leader is. It is just that in the case of Xi Jinping, it has become more aggressively visible than it could have been.
And it's, you mentioned that its territorial ambitions have also been increasing, and it's got problems with all of its neighbors, and especially in our case, their claims seem to be growing by the day. They're claiming entire parts of Arunachal and Ladakh. These are all parts of India.
We do look at strategic ambitions of China very clearly as territorial ambitions.
Right.
Because that is how they manifest. But I think if you look at it deeper, these ambitions of China are not just territorial. These ambitions of China are to let everybody know who is the boss and who commands influence in the area. If you talk about South China Seas, occupation of area, those islands in South China Seas is not just territorial, but they have to expand their areas of influence beyond what they have.
It's about talking about who's the number one power.
Who's the number one?
Yeah.
And more, they need to have this area for their own strategic expansion, strategic projection.
But in our case, for instance, now Ladakh is an area that they've claimed right up to their claim lines in the 50s, and then Arunachal Pradesh as well, they've claimed those. Is it a thing of territorial ambition, or is it to kind of tell India that they are the regional power and India can never aspire to?
Later.
Right.
They are very clearly saying, don't challenge me.
Right. So it's the Chinese emperor syndrome.
It's the Chinese, and every Chinese has it. I remember when I was in China, there was one Chinese who looked at me in the eyes and said, "Ni kan wo was a Zhongguoren, wo bu hui bu dui," meaning I'm a Chinese, I can never be wrong.
Okay. Right.
So that is how Chinese operate.
Was that gentleman a government official, or
no.
was he
just a minor person on the road?
Right.
Somebody normal completely. But a normal Chinese would still think that he is the center of the universe.
Right. You think that is a problem that we face with China in the boundary talks with?
I think it's very, very, very difficult for China to compromise on the positions.
Right. And in fact, we've been on the border with China. It's been largely quiet. There was a stated government policy not to develop the infrastructure for decades, right until the 90s, until when China started building up very rapidly, and that's when India started to follow suit. But until 2014, I think the road building wasn't at the speed that it is today. And in fact, we sent a News9 Plus team to spend some time along the LAC with Depsang, at Depsang. Let's listen into their report.
China has earmarked $25 billion just for Tibet in its current 5-year plan. This strengthens China's expansionist plans. But India has decided to limit the dragon. So in last few years, India has been building along LAC on war footing. News9 Plus brings you an exclusive peek into the infrastructure build-up near the line of actual control. So, this is the way to Demchok. And you can see on the mountain there is a bunker also. On the top of the mountain is India's observation post. And the brown mountains that you can see opposite to this mountain is China. We cannot take the camera out of the vehicle because it is not allowed. So from inside the vehicle, as far as I am able to show you, I will try to show you. So a mountain in the middle, the small mountain, on top of that mountain is the Chinese post. And they must be observing our vehicle moving on the road. And this is the road built by BRO to Demchok, India's first village.
One of the main roads which I mentioned to you was the Trishul-Dungti-Phukche-Demchok road, which runs almost parallel to the LSE for almost 121 odd kilometers.
CDFD road, as you have traveled on that road, it's a tough road, and it is situated on an average height of 14,500 feet, and working at that height also becomes very difficult for our people. At places it is 10 kilometers, 15 kilometers, at places it is 1.5 kilometers also. There was no road as close to LSE earlier.
Yes, we have started this year, and we have almost reached from Demchok to Phukche, and we are planning to complete this road by next working season. That is my target, and my BRTF has been moved basically for this road only, for CDFD road and the Neoma LG. Beyond this road, we won't be building any roads towards the LSE.
Total cost is approximately 450 crores, and today if you take a stock of the road, it is approximately 15 to 17% of the road has been constructed. Now we are accelerating it more because now the work has stabilized and we have inducted more machines, more people. Our endeavor is to complete this by September next year. Otherwise, its official PDC is May 25.
From Demchok, we have reached Phukche through a road which is 121 kilometers long and is being built along the LAC. And you can see this is the road that is being built, and not more than 1 kilometer from this road towards those mountains is Tibet. And those are the Tibetan mountains that you can see on our camera. The distance to LAC from this road is not more than 1 kilometer. As we moved ahead along the Indus Valley on the strategically important CDFD road, we could see Chinese posts often on the other side of the river. One of it could be seen for many kilometers. We were told that we were under observation for sure. We too had our posts on our side. It is an eyeball-to-eyeball contact between Indian Army and PLA soldiers here.
We can put our troops if the situation arises, so they can move all along the LAC in the forward locations and posts as early as possible. DSDBO road is also going along the LAC, and it facilitates our troops to get deployed as far forward as possible till Daulat Beg Oldi, which is the ALG there and in the northmost region. Now we are working on an alternate connectivity to DSDBO, because DSDBO is in the show window, or it is any troop movement can be monitored and seen by the adversary. Instead of going on DSDBO road, they can go use this alignment and reach DBO without getting noticed.
China views Tibet as the palm, and Ladakh has one of the fingers, then Sikkim has one of the fingers, Bhutan has one of the fingers, Nepal has one of the fingers, and Arunachal has one more finger. So in the strategic calculus of China, all these areas are extremely sensitive. And if you look at collusion between Pakistan and China, then Ladakh takes priority.
Strategic importance of Ladakh, you know, and everyone knows in the present circumstances, is very high. And we need to strengthen this security. So this road network supports our security forces to go as much forward as ahead. And they don't feel deficiency of network to do the job which is assigned to them to secure the borders.
There are two nations which have attacked us in the past. Pakistan, 1947-48, 1965, 1971, 1999 Kargil, China, 1962. So if you have belligerent states on your border, and at the drop of the hat, they would like to exploit if you have any weakness. So it is very significant. We have got to be prepared around the year, 24/7.
take your mind back to 1984 when we occupied Siachen Glacier, although it had been a part of our territory all through. But what happened to Pakistan? What was the sensitivity that got triggered? Because for them, that is the point which keeps China, Pakistan away. And also remember that Shaksgam Valley, which was a part of the Pak-occupied Kashmir, Gilgit, Baltistan, northern area as they used to call it, was gifted away illegally by Pakistan to China. So obviously for them, Ladakh, Siachen Glacier, these are extremely sensitive for them.
Out of 90 border road projects recently inaugurated by the Defence Minister Rajnath Singh, 25 are in Ladakh.
Ladakh, we are putting lot of funds, and this year it is approximately 1,500 crores. But as the work progresses, it will increase because there will be a lot of more roads being completed and Neoma airfield is coming up. So this may go up to 2,500 or so at the end of the year as the work progresses.
My BRTF approximately handling a 1,400 crore project, which include construction of approximately 201 kilometer road, new roads, maintenance of 205 kilometer roads, as I told you, and in construction of 4 important bridges connecting Hanle to the remote villages. Very important is Neoma LG, which will be, once constructed, highest airfield in the world. We will be starting one work also, Likaru Migla Pukche. To tell you more about this road, once constructed, this road will be again the highest road in the world.
We are also focusing on air infrastructure. Our Neoma Air Force Station, that is coming in a major way. So you have road connectivity, and then you have the air connectivity, so as to say. I'm sure that is going to be a game changer. Other smaller roads are also happening in a major way, which are all designed to make places closer to each other.